thing is, what's the most important thing to do on this on the people aspect of Microsoft ecosystem. So,
Okay.
you know.
Okay, great. Okay, and so did this role involve any team building effort, or did you just inherit a team that was already there?
Um, both these roles, the first one that we mentioned in the Bing ads, they both
Yeah.
dealt with hiring, but it was more like it was not a building teams from scratch kind of hiring. It was more like there is a set of people, you
Uh-huh.
hire 2 or 3 developers because you need more. But it was not that you start off with with nothing and then you do a whole team building kind of thing. But hiring was a constant thread, that always there.
Yeah.
But it was not the major occupation of mine, at that time.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, and then this audience intelligent behavioral targeting platform in Bing.
Yeah.
Yes, so
So yeah, just to clarify,
Mhm.
so I had 2 different phases within Bing team in Microsoft. This is like
Okay.
this is my first foray in Bing actually. So there were 2 different times in that tenure of Microsoft that I was in Bing team. Now we're going to talk about the first one.
Mhm.
So this was uh, more like so now we're kind of getting into a point where we are I'm in an IC role now. So
Okay.
as a senior dev, right?
Mhm.
So I was a senior developer um, at Microsoft that time, and this one. So let me try to describe it in a more simpler way. So
Uh-huh.
typically, what happens, and this was like that time that now you see more of these things happening everywhere. During
Mhm.
that time in 2006, it was not so common. So
Mhm.
typically the flow was that as you are as a user of Microsoft online system, as you do things, you may be going to MSN.com and reading a news story, or you may
Mhm.
be checking something uh, on MSDN because you are learning about Microsoft's new offerings, or you may be going to Bing to search for some things, right?
Mhm.
So all of those things, they tell something about you. What are you searching? What are you reading? You know, and once we
Yeah.
get the data, once we get the data about a consumer, we know about the behavioral characteristics of the person and what you are about to do, right? For example,
Yeah.
if you go and search for Honda Odyssey deals. So, I mean, if you do that often enough, we can easily segment you to say that, there's probably a person who's out for buying a car,
Yeah.
and then I can segment you into that car buying user segment. Or
Mhm.
if you're searching for too many things that are more about baby needs, I can say that you have an infant in your household, and so this is the idea was that getting all the data once it has
Mhm.
happened, aggregating
Mhm.
all of the data, and trying to segment users into certain buckets, and then using that information to show them the ads that that
Yeah.
that they may be interested in actually. So that's what
Mhm.
we call behavioral targeting here actually. So um,
Okay. And that's really common these days. Like you
yeah,
just
that
do a
time
common
it was
search on
very new
Google
thing.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
in 2006 it was not so common, and this was
Yeah.
Microsoft's first um, you know kind of experiment over there. And so we used to get all the data from msn.com and Microsoft Search, whatever it was at that time. And this
Mhm.
was a new seeding of a team. So me, along with a couple of other developers, were hired to start writing solution that now Microsoft doesn't do that big. It's mostly like you'll see that on Google, Facebook, and Amazon. But at that time, it was Microsoft's thing. They're trying to incubate a solution like that. So I
Okay.
kind of joined that team I think it was a team of 3 or 4 people, and I was one of the senior devs. There was another senior dev, and we were kind of writing a solution ground up from scratch. So
Yeah. Mm. And you guys have a patent for it as well.
yeah, there's a patent for that. So that was a group patent actually. So we all were working together. So
Okay, that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Thanks.
And so that brings me to a point that, while I was doing, a search of the sort of roles that you said that, that you are interested in. So some of the roles actually ask for experience with artificial intelligence and machine learning. So do you have experience with that technologies or some areas that you are planning on exploring in near future?
Yes, and so I think okay. Like I'm glad you asked that question. So
Mm-hmm.
let me briefly talk about my situation at the moment right now. So
Okay.
um, so uh, I'm not so whatever I have going for myself at Amazon right now, it's pretty
Mm-hmm.
darn good, in terms of learning and growing, both in terms of the business portfolio plus the team size and maybe and including the compensation side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I am so if, like as I told you like in the beginning of this conversation that I joined this current Amazon team in
Mm-hmm.
2016, and it's been roughly
Yeah.
3.5 years, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely want um, to 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 do a career change or a role change next year.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
the thought that provoked this whole thing was that while I'm looking at it,
Mm-hmm.
internally to Amazon, like let me just see, and explore opportunities outside of Amazon as well, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so um, so like, and that's why like I'm kind of very kind of targeting specific roles in specific companies right now.
Mm-hmm.
So and one thing while I was prepping for all of that is I realized that like I haven't spent a lot of time revamping my LinkedIn profile and resume. So yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely I would be interested in those opportunities, and in
Mm-hmm.
I am kind of pursuing a couple of similar roles um, in large scale services and cloud in
Uh-huh.
Google and Facebook right now. So
Okay.
and I also have intentions to go back to Microsoft if if things work out, all those kind of things. So yeah, I mean, like
Okay.
to answer your questions, yes, um, um, like uh, in big data or machine learning or big large scale services, public cloud, I would be
Mm-hmm.
interested there, but I'm kind of in a mode where like even my LinkedIn profile doesn't say that I'm looking out right now. It's because I'm cherry
Yeah.
picking specific roles in specific companies that I
Yeah.
know are are kind of a big step for me when it comes. It has to meet the bar because I don't have any reason right now. Why I should be changing my current role,
Yeah.
except for that. That I've been here long enough, and I think you're
Mm-hmm.
probably aware of 4-year tenure at Amazon, right? Where there's a steep change in how your compensation and other things work from that point onwards.
Yeah.
So those are the factors that are involved. But yeah, I mean that's how like my situation is right now actually. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
Mm.
Okay.
So yeah,
And so then,
if you are
yeah. Yeah.
sorry to complete that thought. So yeah, I mean in Seattle area, if there are compelling uh, engineering leadership opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
within in that uh, where there is a good focus on product uh, path forward, and
Uh-huh.
not a significant distance away from the tech side of things. Yeah, I can
Mm-hmm.
certainly I can certainly take a look at those.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
So anything else from this particular project of yours of the behavior targeting platform?
Not really. That was my first transition point. All the tenure before that, whether it was Microsoft or Intel, it was very primarily focused on desktop and PC applications, not so much about services and distributed applications. This was the first transition point where I left Windows team in 2006 to join this team that was newly being formed to work
Mm-hmm.
on internet and services and online systems. Before that, if you look at my resume, the entire tenure is on working on developing Windows operating system or developing browsers. So this was that's the only other interesting part of this role. As yeah, so
Okay.
and it dealt with big data quite a bit, as you may imagine. Because we had to process all the user activities of large set of customers from search
Yeah.
and all the places. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then this model-based testing design environment, and yeah, so this was your role as the software design engineer.
Yeah. So this was now we're kind of getting to a point where I was a mid-level developer
Yeah.
at Microsoft. So Windows, this was within Windows team at Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
Windows is
Mm-hmm.
a huge organization within Microsoft. Like even in those days, it used to be a team of that had 5,000 engineers worldwide, right?
Yeah.
So and because of the challenges involved and all the stakes that were there, uh, like now it was not nowadays you can easily fix a software, because everything is running in
Mm-hmm.
the cloud and services. That time, whatever is shipped as part of your Windows operating system, it's pretty hard to fix it if you make a bug, right? So
Oh,
I was on the team that had the responsibility to elevate like how we validate software that runs on your PC as part of
okay.
the out of the box thing that you get from Best Buy or wherever, um, in a way where that that drives cost saving and kind of not doing traditional ways of software validation where you have
Okay.
a manual test case generation and you're manually testing it, or even if you are having some automation, it's kind of semi-automated. So this was kind of elevating that to a level where a software engineer doesn't have to manually write code that validates the functionality of the software that runs as part of Windows. So I
Okay.
was on that team. It was a very very new emerging field. It was mostly research at that point of time. So myself, along with my team, working with some other architects within Microsoft, and we even had participation from Florida Tech University, as a research uh,
Mm.
space. So that was more like internal solutioning that 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 aimed towards doing non-conventional, more advanced form of software validation, so that you drive more agility and cost reduction in how you ship Windows operating system. So
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, great. And so, and this is associated with another project as well, like the I think the previous part of this particular product that was earlier, the model-based testing design. The I think the
Yeah. Those
uh,
were kind of those different phases of the same project, same thematic
yeah.
thing, but it was
Uh-huh.
done in two different teams under two different leaderships. So that's why they called it differently. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So anything else then from this one?
No, I mean, I think, yeah, I think that's, uh, yeah, other than that, like if you go through the content, you'll see it's very um, typical, software
Mhm.
developer delivery kind of thing, in terms of technologies
Yeah.
and all that
Mhm.
stuff. So, yeah, so.
Okay. And then the WDT resolver, the Windows test tools, stress failure resolver. Yeah.
Yeah, those are kind of other tool sets that are in the same space because I
Mm-hmm.
was part of the engineering systems team within Windows. So this
Mm-hmm.
was the other big project. That is also it's kind of one-off project, that you can think within
Mm-hmm.
Windows engineering systems team actually. Yeah, so it's just a one-off project, a software development project that I had. Um, like it had a big impact, but nothing too fancy about the technical aspects of that project. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is interesting that here you have mentioned research various methodologies to ensure we use the development deployment scheme that takes minimal dependency upon the Windows test infrastructure. So, what sort of methodologies were you able to adopt?
Um, so those are these are more like how should I say? They're not like methodologies as you would put it in a broader sense. Those are just
Mm-hmm.
kind of patterns and practices that we followed within the
Okay.
division itself. I would say. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, anything else then?
I think that's all. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, yeah, so this test model toolkit, yeah, so this one, uh, it was as a software design engineer in test.
yeah, that time I was a software developer that was more uh, actually that's a good call out. So earlier there was a different designation and job title for
Mm-hmm.
for developers who worked on product versus validation. So
Mm-hmm.
so my initial start at Microsoft was as a member of a software part of the team that did tests and validations of the software that ships actually. That's why you see
Okay.
like it starts as a software development engineering test, then later it changes actually because then I became part of the product team as I kind of grew from a entry level developer to a mid level developer to senior developer. So that's why
Yeah.
it's called software design engineering test. Now most companies don't have that distinction; they only have software engineers. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, anything else from this role, or anything that you think you haven't mentioned, or anything you would like to discuss from this one?
Um, Not really. I mean, I would just say that it's one of the kind of a seeding projects of a new method. So model-based testing is a whole new method test software validation methodology. So which
Mm-hmm.
was mostly academic and not really used by enterprises to do how they do their
Mm-hmm.
work. So test model toolkit and WTT, whatever you see that those two projects, uh, they were the first uh, efforts within Microsoft to take those advanced techniques that were so far only in research papers and talked about in academia and write a practical tool set that can be scaled up to an org of 5,000 people. That's a very important point, actually.
Yeah.
So up until now, nobody had done that, even in a company like Microsoft, actually. So we
Mm-hmm.
had the funding in our team and the support of a leadership to go solve the problem, and that's how we started. You know, those two
Mm-hmm.
big projects. Yeah. So,
Okay. Okay. Perfect. And so
thanks.
while we are, moving ahead towards Intel Corporation eventually, so one thing I would like to add is that we don't really recommend adding too much information about employment before the year 2005, because I think
Mm-hmm.
we think that 15-year experience is, a professional experience is good enough, because anything before that, it creates an age bias, and also things seems to go outdate. Like, okay, so even the technologies that were built, that one, and the way technology has evolved over time, so that that it's not really current. when we are discussing those. So what would you prefer? But then, because we have to eventually design everything according to your preference. So what do you think about this?
I think those are valid points that you mentioned, the age bias and the relevance of that work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think what I would prefer is in terms of uh, the amount of content that like I do agree that conciseness is a virtue and resumes should not be that long and they should be pretty comprehensive and succinct as
Mm-hmm.
much as possible. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's fine to the most recent work, the most recent roles can have
Mm-hmm.
they can take up most of the content or the space that is available. Um,
Uh-huh.
I also I think given that so and this is a question more like a more than a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say that I completed my you know education in '95, if I
Mm-hmm.
mention that thing when I got the degree and all that, I
Mm-hmm.
think people can
Yeah.
always find out the age factor, right? I mean, it's not and anybody can easily figure that out, like they can ballpark,
Yeah.
you know, the
Mm-hmm.
age
Yeah. So
factor.
that's why we actually avoid managing, mentioning the date of your graduation before, if it goes before the year 2000.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I see what I mean. Okay, I think that is uh, okay. I think we can. Um, so how about this? Um, like, yes, I think that is fine. We can take out the date of the when the education got completed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can we still have a passing reference to um, the Intel experience? Because I think given
Yeah,
that
it's
it is
it's a
still
huge.
a big, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. It's a
Uh,
huge corporation, and mention it's really impressive to have it on the resume that you work with all these different huge organizations that are still
yeah,
relevant today. And
yeah,
so I think what we can do is something like a section of other projects or other achievements, something like that, where we could just briefly mention a couple of projects and just mention with that, okay, undertaken at Intel, or yeah, so like it could be an earlier experience as well, or some way in which we can just add a few of the things that you did there in a couple of points, and then that's one way.
yeah. Sure. I think we can go that route then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah, I think I trust your research and opinion as I'm kind of getting this help. So yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
yeah,
so
thank
yeah, so yeah. So.
you. Okay, perfect, makes sense. So okay, and then the Internet Explorer set up test automation at Microsoft Corporation. Yeah, and so anything else from this one?
So from the Intel, I think nothing
Only
too specific.
from.
I can maybe I can what I can as an overarching thing I can talk about what that role was so that you can
Mhm.
retrofit it easily. So
Okay.
like Intel, as you know, is primarily a hardware company,
Yeah.
primarily in the business of producing computer processing chips, right? So this
Yeah.
particular role was every time they come up with a new processor that is faster and better, in certain ways, they wanted
Mm-hmm.
the best way to exemplify and showcase that is by showing them the applications. The
Mm-hmm.
Pentium 4 is better than Pentium 2 because it can do better graphics for these PC games, and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So a lot of those projects that I mentioned in that Intel experience are all the projects that were software projects, but they were showcase applications to show
Mm-hmm.
how you know how the latest Intel processor is better at doing certain things. So that was the goal. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a partnership mostly between Microsoft and Intel. At that time, I
Mm-hmm.
was at Intel and writing apps, to showcase the power of the new processors that Intel was shipping at that moment of time. So yeah. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
so I think some Uber statement that captures the essence of this. can maybe sufficient, and we can take out the details of smaller projects and all that. So yeah, so
Yeah, that will also work.
yeah.
Okay. And so another thing I want to know is that this technical skills section in your resume, is it updated or do you think you have to add some stuff to it?
I think it's a union of everything that I've done so far,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more like
Okay.
that's why like I think that part is more tech stacky in terms of all the technical technologies that I've worked on.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing it in the first couple of pages of the resumes, and it's probably a union of everything that I've learned and worked with, everything that is
Yeah.
core. Uh, so yeah, I mean, if you have to prune that out to to take out some of the things that are not so much forward looking, we can do that. So
No, I think this really looks good. I just wanted to make sure that it's updated and we are including all the updated skill sets that you have.
sure, sure. I think
Okay.
it's updated. I can double check and confirm that to you on email. So
Sure, definitely. And
yeah.
another thing is that when we are creating the LinkedIn profile, so there the summary section is a really important part where we create a value proposition for you as a candidate, and there we explain that okay, I am this and this sort of a person, and this is what I have done, and this is what I can do for your company as well. So for that LinkedIn profile summary, do you have anything in mind that you really want, that okay, this should come out and I should be portrayed as such and such person, and these skills should be highlighted there?
Um, so I think in terms of the relevance of information over there, definitely the whole product and the services uh, experience, not just building, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, building the teams that do
Mm-hmm.
that, and I think that has to kind of come out very strongly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if the verbiage can be such that it also reflects, somebody who is already a MP level manager and looking to either take a bigger portfolio, or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, to give you an example, like whatever where I am right now at Amazon, an equivalent position in Oracle is called director, right? So it's not so much so about the title, but if it kind of
Yeah.
conveys the ownership and the product side of things, maybe
Mm-hmm.
also sometimes people use different ways to gauge,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is the number of services, the team size,
Yeah.
how long you have been. Lot of time people think, oh, you have been at Amazon for 3.5 years, then that's a big deal. So the people gauge that differently. So whatever those
Yeah.
data points, if they can reflect from that overview, that will be good. But the kind of positions that I'm targeting, as I'm looking for the next year, is
Mm-hmm.
definitely in terms of um, the product portfolio should be equal or higher, in terms of, I'm not so much fixated about the number of people span, because I know that if I were in Facebook or Google, it'll be different. They're more flatter
Mm-hmm.
organization with different kind of the SGM role is slightly different. An M2 role in those companies maybe about 75 people and all that. So it's more about the product, uh, um, the portfolio, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep it more concentrated towards the big tech, public cloud
Okay.
or not. So yeah, so so right now, like, so I have a date with Facebook like the middle of December. So that's
Okay.